Greetings, fellow RotoBallers. Welcome back. It is week 3, and it's time for our starts and sits. And Dave, I'm going to go first. I'm going to start with my QB start of the week. This is a man who didn't play so well on Monday Night Football, but he's playing a Lions team that he's 7-2 career against with 19 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions. He's averaged 282 passing yards against them. It is Kirk Cousins' bounce-back game against the Lions defense that is allowing the third most fantasy points to quarterbacks through the first 3 weeks.
I'm going to go ahead and give you my QB sit. It's Russ Wilson because, bro, Russ looks lost. And I get it's a new team, it's a new coaching staff, but to the eye test, he's looking more like Russ from the latter half of last year, completing only 58% of his passes. That's 26 in the NFL. And this week he gets a San Francisco D that's only allowed 142 passing yards to opposing quarterbacks. Hey, Russ, let's ride my bench. And my start at tight end is going to be a dude who's actually in a kind of a bad matchup. So you may be looking at that thinking, I don't want to start him. He's taking on the Rams, who are the second hardest matchup for tight ends. But this guy picked up right where he left off last year as Kyler's binky, Joey. It's Zach Ertz. They amped him up to 11 targets post-injury. And with the Cardinals still trotting out some dude named Greg Dortch, I think Ertz is as safe as they come in week 3.
Rolling on now to our tight end sits of the week. Now, look, he's on my favorite team. He's on your favorite team, Dave, and he might have actually been drafted in a lot of drafts this year, but until he makes 1 reception, he only has 2 targets through 2 games. You got to sit Cole Kmet versus the Texans. Look, we thought this was going to be a breakout season, but so far, it's just been a break-your-heart type of start for fantasy owners right now. Don't drop him just yet, but just have him ride your bench in week 3. Moving on, Dave, it's time for the wide receiver starts this week. And Dave, last week, the rookies absolutely blew up. It was so great to see. And this wide receiver through 2 games has 13 receptions for 160 yards and 1 touchdown. They're getting him the ball in space. He's got the most air yards of any rookie right now. It's Drake London versus the Seahawks. I think they get him the ball early and often. He gets a lot of volume. I'm starting Drake London in week 3.
Here are my sits, but before I tell you who it is, I'm just going to ask you a question, Joey. Which wide receiver from the Packers would you start this week? Is it Lazard? Is it the rookies? Is it old man Sammy Watkins? Is it older man Randall Cobb? Well, the answer should be Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. But since you can't start them in your wide receiver slot, I'm saying sit all the Packers wideouts. Okay, they're taking on a Bucs defense who has still shown signs of dominance. And we move on to the juicy ones, Joey. It's time to talk running backs. Our start of the week, we bashed him. We got to amp up one of them. David Montgomery from our beloved Bears.
We're back.
Okay, and I'm ready to take us back down a notch because here's a fun fact from StatMuse. And by fun, I mean the worst if you're a Bears fan. Listen up, folks. The Bears have 28 pass attempts this year. Every other team in the NFL has at least 28 completions. All that means is we're going to run, and run some more. They don't feel like throwing. David Montgomery is going to eat against the Texans, who's currently yielding the 7th most fantasy points to running backs.
And we're going to wrap it up with my running back sit of this week. And Dave, I'm stepping on your theme here. I'm going with 2 teams. I'm doubling up on you right now. And I'm going the running backs on the Buffalo Bills and the running backs on the Miami Dolphins, and they're playing each other. Dave, another fun stat. The Buffalo Bills in week 1 scored 31 points, and their leading rusher was Devin Singletary with 48 rushing yards. The Bills scored 41 points in week 2. Their lead rusher was James Cook with 53. It is an explosive offense. You can easily sit both of them. And on the Miami Dolphins side, honestly, it should be a crime. I think they passed a law in Florida, actually, where if you don't get the ball to Jalen Waddle or Tyreek Hill on 2 or 3 plays out of every single drive, you get arrested. Those tiny wide receivers, they're super fast, but they can't run block. Ditch Chase Edmonds. This is going to be a shootout. I would sit both the Dolphins running backs and the Bills running backs too as well. And now, Dave, it is time for our 60-second recap. Time it up and get ready. Here it is. Here is our week 3 starts and sits on RotoBaller.com. I'm starting Kirk Cousins versus a Lions team that has given up a lot of fantasy points, and Kirk Cousins has great history against them. Zach Ertz versus the Rams, security blanket for Kyler Murray. That is a start for us. Also, Drake London, the rookie, versus the Seahawks. We think he's going to get a lot of targets this week. And wrapping it up, David Montgomery, who ran the ball so great against the Packers, gets the rock a lot, we think, against the Texans, and maybe even just scores a tutty.
All right, Russ Wilson should ride your bench if possible versus a very tough 49ers pass rush. If you still have Cole Kmet on your team, you can go ahead and sit him, cut him. I don't care because the Bears are cool with never passing again. Staying in the NFC North, the Packers wide receiver situation is a headache you don't want any part of this week. And speaking of headaches, do yourself a favor and avoid any and all Dolphins and Bills running backs in their battle of the backs by committees. Now, like and subscribe to RotoBaller.